Hello everyone, welcome to another video. And in this video, we are going to continue with chapter number 18. The name of the chapter is You Will Believe Anything. And if you remember in the last video, we talked about how we tell ourselves different narratives, different stories, and how do we actually strongly believe in those stories, and how they eventually end up impacting our financial lives. So there are many things in life that we think are true because of the sole reason that we want them to be true, right? So author calls them appealing fictions. This very thing is called appealing fictions, and they have a big impact on the way we think about money, and in turn they impact our investments, our investment strategies, and how we think about the economy as well. So, how do these appealing fictions actually happen? They happen in the case when we are smart, and we also want to find solutions, but we are in such a situation where we have limited control over the situation, and the stakes are really high. And when we find ourselves in that kind of situation, then they can actually make us believe in anything. So we're going to look at a story of Ali Hajaji's. So Ali Hajaji's son was sick, was really really sick one time, and the people from his tribe in Yemen actually recommended um, outdated approach to treating sick people. So they basically suggested that he should he should um touch or put a tip of a burning stick on the chest of his son to actually let all the sickness out. And this is one example. And if you look at the modern medicine and what we had before the modern medicine, it used to be very different. Like before the discovery of the scientific method, and also the discovery of germs and how they actually transmit from one person to another, people used to practice bloodletting. They would put one person's blood to another person, and they would do starvation, and they would also carve out holes in the bodies to let the evil and the sickness out, right? Those were all um, the practices, and they actually did not help at all, but they in fact made you get closer to that death even faster actually. So the thing is, like, when we find ourselves in these kind of situations where we don't have many options and the stakes are really really high, then what happens is that we are not only just willing to try the possible or the available things, but we're also willing to believe in that. Not just try it, but believe it as well. And the same thing can actually, if you think in terms of finance and investing, and if you think like when we have limited options and limited information, and the stakes are really really high, then those circumstances can also end up impacting our financial decisions as well. So we can ask ourselves, like, why do we even listen to the investment commentary on the TV, right? I mean, they don't have a very good track record of success, the investment information that is presented on the TV, but yet people still listen to it. And the reason they listen to it is because the stakes are high. When it comes to investing, the stakes are really high. Even if you have like a very small chance of succeeding big time, even if you, let's say, there is a chance for one stock to go like 10 folds or 100 folds in a short amount of time, then you're still willing to basically listen to that, even though the probability is very very low. You're still willing to listen to that, and just in case, like, if something happens, then it's going to have a big impact on your life. So we basically tell ourselves this story, and we start to believe in that story because the stakes are really really high. It can basically change your life, right? And the same thing happens when it comes to our financial strategies. There are so many financial opinions in the market, like you should invest in this stock, you should invest in this index fund, blah blah blah. So many reasons to pick up a strategy, right? But the thing is, like, once you have picked up the strategy, you not only invest in it financially, but you also invest in it mentally as well. So if you have made up your mind that this stock is going to go 10%, or not 10%, like 100% in the next few months, then you're going to stick to it. And if you believe like a certain policy is going to cause hyperinflation, then you're also going to stick to it because you believe the story, right? And the problem with this approach is that once you start to believe that story, you do not actually calibrate the low odds, because the odds of that story coming true is very, very low. And that is the reason, and the reason we basically do that, with that we discard the low probability of success, is because the stakes are really, really high, as I mentioned before. It has the potential to basically change your life with very low effort, right? And that is the sole reason that people actually um, want that to be true. And they don't actually want it to be true, but they actually think that it is the truth, actually. and and again, this is one of the reasons that people actually believe in quackery, the financial quackery, like what's the word for that, like the possible outcomes which are not really certain, and um, the stories that people tell each other when it comes to finance, when it comes to investing, like the stock is going to go this high, the market is going to go bonkers, you're going to make a lot of money, like all this misinformation or disinformation that is around investments. People actually listen to that, and sometimes they actually believe in that. And this is a bit different from weather quackery, because I mean, it doesn't really matter that how the weather is going to be in a week or so, compared to, like, if you think that this stock is going to go 50% up in the next 7 days, you are more prone to believing in that quackery than the weather quackery, because it impacts you more, because it has the potential for different outcomes, more impact on your life, basically, right? We're going to look at another example when it comes to believing in stories and why we stick to them. So 85% of the mutual funds have basically underperformed in the 10 years up until 2018. And that kind of like makes you wonder, like, why do people still keep on investing in those, right? And why they are still in business. And you would be surprised to know that there is hefty amount invested in those mutual funds. And to be exact, it's $5 trillion that is invested. And the reason that people have put so much money, and in some cases all of their life savings, because they just want to invest alongside someone who they think is going to be the next Warren Buffett. So that is the story that they have told themselves, and they have firmly believed in that. And then you also have the story of the Ponzi scheme by Bernie Madoff. He actually convinced people. The people believed in his story, and the rest, we know what happened with that. So, so we have looked at how we start believing in the stories that we tell ourselves, and how they eventually end up affecting our financial decisions, right? So how do we actually protect ourselves from this fallacy, from this disposition to this um, potential downside in finance, right, in investing? So as we have seen in the previous videos or in the previous chapters, uh, we have learned about a lot of investment strategies, right? And the most important from those strategies is basically to have a room for error. If you remember, we discussed that in the previous videos, right? So the room for error, the room for error, if I were to define it again, is basically the gap between what you want to be true and what you need to be true. So the bigger the gap is between these two things, the higher the chances you have that you're gonna sustain, you're gonna see through uh, a financial mishap, because you already kind of like accounted for that, right? And one more thing to keep in mind when it comes to room for error, that our gap has to be realistic. Sometimes our gap is so narrow that it's not even realistic. I mean, we can look at the example of the policymakers in 2007 and 2009. There was a housing collapse between these 2 years, and they came up with numbers like, this is the best the market is gonna probably behave, and this is the worst. And they came up with numbers that this is the worst the market is gonna behave. But when the actual numbers came up, the economy performed 3 times less than what they had predicted in the worst case scenario. So again, we have to keep that gap very realistic. And the reason that we don't keep it realistic in some cases is because if it's going to be worse, then it's going to be very painful to consider. As a human, it's really painful experience, right? So yeah, so this is chapter 18 part 2. There's going to be another video to this chapter, and I will see you in that one. Have a good day.